Wrestlers spend so much time on the road that it's inevitable some out-of-this-world road stories are going to exist. We know about loads of these too, as performers have let them spill throughout the years, but that doesn't make them any less than compelling. What the talent does away from the squared circle can often be more interesting and surprising than what happens inside of it. Most of these tales are probably not suitable for human consumption, but thankfully the ones that do float through to our ears can be told, and we can question once more, what in the hell pro wrestling even is. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 wrestling road stories you won't believe. Number 10. Fear the Wrath of Ming. Often referred to as the toughest guy in pro wrestling history, the real name Tonga Fafita never took any prisoners. When he got mad, you better watch out. Possessing one hell of a convincing wild man gimmick, the trick was that it wasn't much of a gimmick. Ming was just one dangerous and there's loads of evidence that nods to this. For example, according to Kevin Sullivan, he and Ming once got into a bar fight after locals racially insulted his traveling partner. Along with the usual scuffles, Ming also bit through one of the guy's shirts like a wolf and took a chunk out of his back. Another time, he was arrested during a bar fight in St. Louis and got pepper sprayed by the police as well as handcuffed. Ming didn't like this though, so after glaring at the officers, he snapped off the cuffs and went back to fighting. There's also stories of him lifting people up with one hand, literally pulling people's teeth out of their mouths, and even tearing out eyeballs if he was mad enough, and most of these tales are, according to the man himself, 100% true. He even bit a dude's nose off once. Safe to say you don't want to mess with Ming, you'd probably die or be left without your facial features. Number 9. Stone Cold William Regal and Mick Foley visit a gay beach. Back in 1993, WCW wrestlers Mick Foley, William Regal and Steve Austin were sharing a room in Florida. With a few hours to kill until their show started, they decided to head down to their local beach. Foley went body surfing and disappeared out into the sea, leaving Austin and Regal to work on their tans. After a while, Foley looked back in the direction of the beach and saw that both of his friends had abandoned him. As he scanned the area, he saw them hurrying across the street. Perplexed, Foley finished his swim and returned to the sand. Looking around in an attempt to see what was going on, Mick observed what he described as a distinct lack of females. On closer inspection, the beach was full of barely dressed young men, many of whom were, to quote Foley, getting very close to each other. Realizing that he was definitely on a beach not meant for him, Foley pegged it back to the hotel where Regal and Austin, who had observed Foley's distress with great amusement, laughed in his face. Number 8. Andre lifts a car. Standing at around 7 feet tall, Andre the Giant left an impression on the pro wrestling world. He could drink 150 beers or an entire crate of wine in one sitting, and he could eat up to 12 large steaks or even 15 whole lobsters. The original giant of the industry was well known for being a passive, almost gentle type of guy, and although he had his moods, he wasn't an especially violent man. However, when angered, Andre was nothing short of a force of nature. Why anyone would want to test their luck against him is quite frankly baffling, but from time to time people, or morons, did just that. On one such occasion, 4 men decided to prove themselves by starting a fight with the giant. Once Andre finally reacted to their provocation, the bullies ran away, but the riled up former champ wasn't about to let it end there. These attackers decided to hide in their car, believing themselves to be safe from his rage. However, Andre responded by literally picking the vehicle up and turning it completely over, which probably ruined their day in a major way. Should have just left him be. Number 7. Angle whips Brock's ass. Brock Lesnar is the real deal. We've seen what he can do in the UFC, and even within WWE has a presence about him. It's all too easy to envision him trying to murder some fools. Even with that though, one Kurt Angle still whooped his ass. Lesnar is and was a genuinely gifted amateur wrestler, but when word got around to Angle, who in addition to being one of the WWE's top hands at the time was also an Olympic gold medalist, there was only one question. Who was the best? Apparently, once the ring had been set up for a show one night, Angle and Lesnar settled their differences via a traditional shoot fight for an audience of wrestlers and other people in the company. According to Kurt, the match lasted a good 12 to 15 minutes, but there was only one takedown, after which Angle, the superior mat wrestler, simply put an end to it. Despite Lesnar being around 70 pounds heavier than Angle at the time, the victory was a clean and decisive one. Kurt may recall the match being close, but considering the age difference, size difference, and height difference between the two men, it's fair to say that Angle walked away with all the bragging rights. Number 6. DDP goes to bed with a bed of biscuits. According to Mick Foley, who told this tale in his first autobiography, Mick Foley and stunning Steve Austin enjoyed ruining DDP's life in 1993. A series of jokes, ribs and gags had Page reeling, but weren't quite enough to crack him entirely. Hiding most of the hotel room towels nearly got to Dallas, but he let his positive approach win out and he let it go. After completing an elaborate bedtime ritual, the master of the diamond cutter retired for the night, unaware that the pair of pranksters had one more gag up their sleeves. A fan had given them some chocolate chip cookies, and rather than eat them, them, Mick and Steve took 35 of them and put them between the sheets of DDP's bed. While he no-sold it at first, it didn't take long before he audibly cried, "Someone's put f***ing cookies in my bed," as he demanded to find out who did it. The answer was obvious, mostly because Foley was laughing like a child in school. This enraged Dallas even more as he jumped on the future Mankind and tried to grind cookies into his skin. Oh, and remember, throughout all of this, DDP was naked. What a lovely evening. Number 5, the Iron Sheik gets busted. Today we all know that two wrestlers feuding doesn't mean they hate each other in real life. In fact, the best matches and rivalries often occur between close friends. This was not the case in 1987 at all. Back in those days, heels and baby faces were kept separate from one another, even traveling on different buses. If a wrestler turned on his tag team partner, for example, it meant traveling separately and possibly even staying in separate hotels. Even when Vince McMahon started taking the industry in a more kid-friendly direction, the wrestlers kept on doing this because that's just how they were brought up. As far as WWE personnel were concerned, everything that happened in the ring was happening for real, and it was important to keep that illusion alive. So you can imagine how surprising it was when American Patriot Hacksaw Jim Duggan was pulled over whilst riding with his bitter adversary, the US-hating Iron Sheik. To make matters worse, they were both high as kites. Police discovered a vast stash of heroin, coke, marijuana and beer in the car, ending with both guys being arrested, as well as plenty of questions as to why they were doing this together. Once the story got out, there was a lot of explaining to do, and now we know it was just another chip in kayfabe's log-standing armor. Number 4, Dr. Gerry Graham kidnaps his dead mother. Gerry Graham, a well-known lunatic within wrestling circles, was always a handful. In fact, so legendary were his antics that Terry Funk even dedicated a whole chapter of his autobiography to them. Nothing will ever be as crazy as what he did in 1969. Jerry's mother Mary had been admitted to hospital, so Graham, who suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder due to his time spent in World War II followed by alcoholism, made a threatening phone call to her doctor in an attempt to persuade him to keep her alive. I'm not sure that's how it works. After she passed on, a grief-stricken Graham decided to make good on his threats and armed himself with a sawn-off shotgun and a hunting knife. Accompanied by his 12-year-old son, he went and picked up his mother's dead body from a gurney and attempted to take her home with him. Amazingly, he was able to fight hospital security one-handed and emerge from the building with the body before heading to his car and exhaustedly dropping it onto the hood. Police arrived at the scene, because of course, so Graham decided he'd take them on as well. Although he was physically and emotionally exhausted, Gerry was still able to fight off several cops until one of them damn near split his head open with a nightstick. No, I don't know either. Number 3, Owen Hart pranks his dad. When it comes to backstage ribbing, Owen Hart will always be considered the undisputed champion. Story of Owen's relentless pranks are legendary, but it's the tales of his notorious phone calls that are best. In his first autobiography, Mick Foley described Owen phoning him and pretending to be the manager of the hotel they were staying in, demanding extra money for the room before calling wrestling fake. Because he edged slowly into these calls and adopted utterly convincing fake accents, Hart was able to drive people completely crazy before they realized who it was on the other end of the phone. It got so intense, not even Owen's family was safe from his constant ribbing, including his own dad. Stu Hart one year had gone with his sons to a WrestleMania and was relaxing in his hotel room with Brett when the phone rang. Apparently it was Reg Park, a former bodybuilder and pro wrestler who was also known for designing championship belts. Reg and Stu had been good friends for years, so the conversation was easy and informal. However, after a fairly long chat, Reg suddenly became argumentative, stated that Hart never had the balls to face him in a real fight, and that he wanted to face him then and there in the lobby of the hotel. According to the hitman, Stu was furious, insisting that Park could have tried him at any time and that he was still welcome to do so. Finally, after really blowing his peak, Stu slammed the phone down, sat on the bed and dejectedly said, "It was Owen, the little bastard got me." What a hero. Number 2, Harley Race versus Hell's Angels. Harley Race was one tough SOB. From an early age, he was extremely good at fighting, which made sense that he took on a gimmick where he challenged audience members for money, regardless of their size, strength, or experience in the ring, and he never lost. Harley was also a great heel as he was stabbed, shot at, and attacked by outraged fans throughout his career. In the early 1980s, for example, when Race was one of wrestling's biggest stars, a group of Hell's Angels bikers began heckling him in the hopes of starting a ruckus. Picking the biggest of these hecklers, Race warned the man that he'd get hurt if he got in the ring, but the biker was adamant, so Harley dutifully took him apart. According to the man himself, he flung his head full force at his now enemy and cracked his nose with his forehead. Race then cross-faced him into a version of a sleeper hold so his buddies could watch him pass out. Everyone thought Harley had killed the man, even though he was just unconscious. In short, don't mess with the king. Number 1. Daniel Bryan destroys a burglar. Daniel Bryan could kick your ass, and this proves it. Despite recovering from serious neck surgery at the time, the former WWE champion successfully apprehended a burglar, helping to put a stop to a series of local robberies in the process. Returning home with his wife Brie Bella, the injured Bryan unknowingly interrupted the robbery. Once he realized what was going on, he chased down a fleeing man and choked him out. Bryan would tell reporters that unfortunately this guy wasn't in very good shape, so it didn't take much, and also joked that his on-screen rival Triple H may have been behind the whole thing. More than anything, the couple's main concern was for the safety of their dog Josie, who of course joined them at the conference. So there's another moral for you too, and it's very much the same as what we've already said. Don't f with Daniel Bryan.